I mentioned in one of my earlier videos that there are ways to get students familiarized with a grammar point and starting to use it even without having explained it in an explicit grammatical lecture fashion. And one way to do that is by introducing these phrases in the context of an activity where they can use phrases, they can use sentence starters when they are answering questions or when they are talking to each other in a conversation. They can start using set phrases. For example, they can start learning different forms of a verb that are more common or forms of a noun depending on the language you're teaching without learning the base form first and learning that these are forms of that. They can just learn whichever form first happens to come up in the reading that they are looking at or the sentence starters that they are using or phrases they're using with a classmate without having to learn first that this is a form of this particular word. And it may seem counterintuitive to that to do it that way because oftentimes in the textbook it's the base form of a word that is listed. For example, an infinitive in Romance languages for the verbs, those are the forms that are listed instead of the conjugated forms. But if it comes up first in an activity in the more common phrase that they might need in everyday life or in classroom routines, then it's easier for the students to just start learning it that way. And then later on, when they learn that it's part of this other verb paradigm, then it's easier for them to understand that rule because they already have an example. That's an example of how the students might start acquiring partial control of a concept without necessarily having that grammar explanation or drill first. Also, a lot of times people say that they need a decontextualized drill form of an activity first before they can use it in a meaningful way. And that's not necessarily true either, because yes, you might need a simple form of an activity before you do something more complex with it, but it doesn't mean that you have to completely remove the meaning and have them just change singular forms to plural forms or plural forms to singular forms or fill in the blanks without even knowing what the words mean first. That is time that could be used in a more productive way and serve two purposes at the same time by having it based on meaning as well as just doing a word game changing the endings of a verb or a noun. For example, if students are asked to describe what's in the picture, they might have to choose between singular and plural forms of the nouns that they see in the picture, and they might be starting to learn the difference between how the singular and plural forms of a noun are written, and they might not have to just take a list of words and change the endings, because one, that's more interesting, especially if they are debating exactly what animal is that they see in the picture, because nobody can really decide, and they might have to use other skills or be more interested in the activity in order to do that, rather than just take a list of words and change the endings. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do decontextualized things without first before you can introduce the context. So those are some examples of how students might encounter the forms of the grammatical forms that they're going to be learning about in a really contextualized way without having to have that detailed grammatical explanation first. I hope that helps you.